Hey guys, slightly different start to this episode, and if you're going to watch the F1 episode as well, then you'll see one of these two from Johnny, because there's just been two massive bits of news in cricket and F1 drop in the space of half an hour of each other. Maybe the F1 we expected slightly more. Johnny can go over that, but I mean, this one is just completely out of the blue. Kane Williamson has retired from international cricket, effective immediately. Now, we definitely had our eyes on the news because of the developing situation with England and Ben Stokes, Gus Atkinson and co. And don't worry, that's covered extensively in this episode. But I don't think anyone saw this coming. Retirement midway through the series from Williamson. Only he'll know for now exactly what the reason is, why he's decided now's the right time to call it. Whether he just wanted one more Lord's Test match. But it seems quite spontaneous, and I guess he's got previous of, I don't know, would you call it poorly timed or unusually timed retirements? Because he did so not long before the last T20 World Cup. He retired from T20 cricket. He wasn't a full member of New Zealand's kind of unit anymore, it'd be fair to say. He was dipping in and out. He didn't have a central contract. He was one of a number of New Zealand players who were operating in that way. But I got the impression, with a massive year of Test cricket ahead, that him and all the others had sort of raised their hand to say that they were fully committed to New Zealand for the year, because they've got a lot of Test matches coming up. So it's a real surprise. I mean, he's been declining for some time. It's probably fair to say in red ball cricket. And he didn't have a great Lord's Test. He's never really loved playing in England, well, in terms of his stats anyway. But it still was just a massive surprise, and it's worth, looking back on how much of a great of the game he is. Potentially New Zealand's greatest ever player, up there with, Richard Hadley, with Crowe, with Ross Taylor, McCullum, people coming to mind. But yeah, in terms of a pure batsman, I don't think anyone really comes close. There's a cat here. Hello, Scylla. What do you think of Kane Williamson's shot retirement? She's not impressed. But he was a great player. He finished with 19,000 plus international runs. It's just reading through his numbers. He's said in an interview that he wasn't motivated by personal milestones. That couldn't become more clear in the fact of how he's left it hanging in every regard. 19,000 international runs, so he was almost close to 20,000. 48 centuries. He was 2 off 50, a half century of centuries. 378 appearances, so if he'd have played another year, he'd have conceivably made 400. This is the real kicker, 9,515 Test match runs. So he falls 400 and odd short, but with an average of 54, so it's a remarkable average. He couldn't have really done any more in the games he played, to be honest, but it's obvious that he wasn't thinking about that 10,000 run mark. But I think for a lot of people that will be sad, because we don't even know if we're going to have another batsman reach 10,000 runs ever again. Will there be enough Test match cricket played? Harry Brook seems like the leading candidate at the minute, but obviously that's a long way into the future. And he really could have been the last person ever to make 10,000 Test runs, and he's declined that opportunity. But incredible player, incredible batsman, just the most pure, perfect technique, plays it later than anyone, maybe even later than Joe Root. Proper technician, just real, like the majority of Kiwis, just incredibly humble, incredibly hardworking and down to earth. He captained New Zealand for a very long time. I think I saw somewhere that he captained them in over 200 games across formats. Captained the greatest ever New Zealand Test side that won that inaugural World Test Championship. I think he was not out at the end with his old mate Ross Taylor as well when they won that one, when they beat India. So, remarkable career. There was a number of finals and semi-finals in other tournaments, obviously never getting over the line in white ball cricket in an ICC tournament, but under his stewardship, they were one of, if not the most consistent team across formats in international cricket. And he leaves a not insignificant hole in this team. I do think it's a fairly straight swap. I'm just Googling the squad. I should have got it up first for England series. I do think it's a fairly straight swap as long as the person I'm considering is in the squad. Yeah, Will Young is in the squad, and I imagine he'll come straight in at 3. He's a very, very fine batsman who's had to wait. I've just Googled him and it's come up with that. I should have seen that coming. That's my fault. Not the singer-songwriter that Jeremy Clarkson fell in love with on Top Gear. The New Zealand cricketer Will Young. He's 33, so he's no spring chicken, and he's had to be the bridesmaid for a very long time. He's always been sort of the spare man in the squad, or he's come and it's not quite worked for him. He's played 23 tests, average of just under 32 with 11 50s, no hundreds. I mean, it doesn't leap off the page, but I think the feeling has been that he's been ready to be a full-time fixture in this team for a while now. And Kane Williamson missed that famous whitewash of India in India a couple of years ago, and it was Will Young who filled his place. And yeah, no 100 for him, but on some turning decks, he produced some brilliant innings that really, helped New Zealand achieve that incredible feat. So I think that we'll see him batting at 3 for that Oval Test match. Still not entirely sure who's going to be playing for England. There's been no developments there as of 1:30 on Friday. But yeah, that's all I've got to say really. Just enjoy the rest of the episode. It'll be a normal episode, and obviously there's so much to talk about. A test match happened, if you remember. Feels like so long ago, and then obviously some things have happened post that. So without further ado, enjoy the rest of the episode. Just for posterity, it's the co-host crawling up the stairs.
I've been thinking this is me rolling out the bowl, and I look like I've had chemotherapy.
Yeah,
because I'm so ill.
You've not come in strong.
No.
You look like Gollum.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Corridor of Uncertainty. I feel like shit. It's been a tough day for me. If you want to, shall I tell the people about it? Shall I say what's been...
Yeah, tell your story.
Nice handling. We are going to talk about cricket. A lot's going on. But first, let's talk about me. I had my... What's the order that's the most hard-hitting way to talk about this? I had my driving theory test today, which I only booked on Monday, having done no preparation prior to that. And I host a pub quiz on a Wednesday night. This is Thursday as we record. At the pub quiz on Wednesday, I said to myself, don't drink. That'll be stupid, because they put free drinks as part of the deal. Don't drink. Don't, just be chill. Gianni Infantino, have you seen that? Chill, relax. Unbelievable. Anyway, so I Gianni Infantino'd for about...
In more ways than one.
Yeah. I don't know what you're referencing. Let's just move past that. For about one drink, I had a glass of water, got started with the quiz, and then had 5 more. Got back at about midnight, and for some reason my hangover was awful. I get really bad hangovers. I'm just such a lightweight. And I had booked in to play paddle for 2 hours in the morning, 10 till 12, but because I have to get the train to Wakefield, because I can't drive, because I, as we'll get to, I'm no closer to being able to drive. I went to play paddle, had to set off about an hour and a half before. It was raining the whole time and hailing at some points during that 2 hours of play. Didn't have time to come back and change clothes. Soaking wet, hungover, feeling sick. Went to do my theory test. Failed both the theory and the hazard perception. The hazard perception was a joke. I definitely got full marks. I was too quick for it. I was too good for it. I definitely got them all right. It's their fault, their problem.
You the hazards before they even became a hazard.
My perception levels are stratospheric. I just knew
there was a child walking down the street with her mother, and you saw
a child
trying to show her mother a flower that she'd picked, and her mother ignored her. And you were like, if that neglect continues to fester, then that cycle of abuse is gonna continue.
And then I
onto her daughter.
Clicked lean back and watched as a car nearly rammed into me. No, I was brilliant at the hazard perception test. It's a joke. It said I got 20 out of 70. That's not true. But I did fail the other one by 1 mark. I got 42 rather than 43, which, I'm glad both of them went wrong. It would have been annoying if one of them had happened and not the other. But so I'm fine about it. I'm fucking fine about it, all right? But I feel like shit. That's the thing. I feel like shit. I'm ill. Charlie got here and called me and I was asleep because I went to let him in, then went back to sleep.
We're an hour and 40 after we've planned to start recording.
Yes, which is my fault.
And also apologies to my uncle who watches this and was worried after literally the last episodes we did. I was hungover, and now Johnny's hungover, and I feel like we've not helped his perception of us as wreckheads, but we're not.
Well, as from the story I've just told you, you can see that I'm a very disciplined, very trustworthy, very respectable gentleman. I also shave my head randomly. I'm not having a breakdown.
I did worry when you answered the door that you were in the midst of a full-on mental breakdown.
Which actually I don't think is too out of the realms of possibility for me. But I'm not having a Britney, and I do look very ill. That's because of the hangover. I've not had chemotherapy. It's all fine. Everything's fine. I just don't feel very well. Let's talk about cricket, because we're a cricket podcast and an F1 podcast, but there's lots going on in both sports. Let's do cricket first. We have to talk about a test match that I've completely forgotten. As it said on your lovely document here, Charlie, I've forgotten that happened because so much has happened in the aftermath, but as we always say, we'll get onto that. Let's talk about the test match, because actually for once, it started a bit difficultly, but we did all right. We should be celebrating.
Yeah, I guess part of the reason why it's been forgotten so quickly is because it was such a whirlwind test match, followed by a whirlwind few days off the field. But it was a fairly convincing win. When you get these crapshoot pitches, you can sometimes lose sight of the fact that even though it's by its very nature, it's sort of tight and nip and tuck until you get into that third innings. One team in this instance, like with Perth, which we'll talk a little bit about Perth, unfortunately, because the similarities were stark in this game, and it had a lot of England fans worried. Like, it was ridiculous the amount of time into the game where basically the scores were identical.
Yes.
But much like Perth, where Australia actually battered England in that game, I think England actually battered New Zealand in this one.
It did, absolutely. I remember I was at work when it was going on. The first innings of the first test, and the first innings of the first session. First innings of the first innings. The first innings. It didn't go very well for us, and it was, and the thinking was that, here we go again. The management is going to be in trouble, not in the way that it's panned out. And I suppose your first instincts, were they that this is not going to go, after a bad start, this is not going to go well? Or did you think, no, it's a tricky pitch, let's see how it goes?
Well, obviously there was the Perth comparison that we've already made, but my mind instantly went back to the first test of the Bazball era, which was also against New Zealand, also at Lord's. And it was a role reversal in that one where New Zealand were rolled for about 140 odd by England. And that was very much, this is the new team, this is the reset and everything's fine again. Even though it was, Broad and Anderson taking the wickets, it's not like anything had really changed, apart from the fact that they had been crazily exiled for a single series and then swiftly brought back. There was Matt Potts making his debut, he was new on the scene, but nothing had really changed. It was that, Stokes probably had an extra slip in than what Root would have done. And everyone's like, this is mind-blowing. This is attacking cricket at its finest. Like, look at that cordon. And then England was swiftly rolled themselves, and they were basically, on the way to being all out by the close of play on day one. And everything was like, actually, maybe nothing's changed at all. So we sort of had that in reverse this time, where it was like, England got rolled. So it was like, nothing's changed. Everything's broken. Why have these people all kept their jobs? But it became clear pretty early on into New Zealand's innings, the old adage that you can't judge a pitch until both teams have batted on it, that it was actually just the pitch had an incredible amount of demons in it, and there was even murmurs that England were walking off quite happy with the 140 all out, as it proved to be.
Yeah, interesting stuff. I mean, yeah, as you say, it proved to be. So after that first innings from both sides, obviously England got out in front and got a bit of a lead. Do you feel from that point on it was relatively plain sailing?
Yeah, I think as we'll touch on this a little bit further down the dock, but yeah, I think England got their game management right. I think more than New Zealand, and they actually played that third innings with a level of maturity that I think maybe was lacking in the Ashes. Maybe you could say the pressure was obviously not as intense, but the pressure on this England team, even if it's not in the heat of an Ashes battle, the pressure on all of them to succeed or die really now, it means that maybe that's not a fair judgment to make. I think, I don't think it was, as I say, the nature of these games, you're never going to be out of sight. Neither team is ever going to be truly out of sight, because, it wasn't inconceivable that the pitch flattened out a bit on day 3 and New Zealand could have made a chase of 250 odd look very, very simple, but that didn't happen. But I think it was about as professionally handled on the field as it could have been, really, given the match situation.
Yep, we'll get on to off the field in a bit. About a month or two ago, in beautiful sunshine, which isn't today, we sat in Headingley Stadium, and I made a comment about how, isn't it up close? You can just see how fast they bowl. And you said, well, that's a certain Ollie Robinson. He doesn't actually bowl that fast. He's kind of known for being a bit slower and take the pace off. And I said, that's interesting. Would that work with England? Is that, there was this whole rigmarole and stuff happened, so he might not ever get back. Well, he is back, and he did all right. Yeah,
he did very well. I couldn't believe my eyes, really. I mean, I was sure that he was going to have a good game, particularly on the wicket doing what I was doing, but I did not predict a triple wicket maiden straight off the bat. But I think with Ollie Robinson, the greater test is obviously yet to come. What's he going to do when the pitch isn't offering? Yeah, when the pitch isn't offering as much. When he's into that third and fourth spell and his pace is down. I mean, his pace wasn't ever really up in this game, which I can see. As soon as the wickets dry up for any period of time, that will be a problem again, and under the spotlight, is he going to be able to keep his head screwed on straight? But I liked a lot of things about it. First of all, he's given himself the number 1, which maybe doesn't indicate a complete change of personality that I think some people were wanting. He didn't used to wear the number 1, so that's funny. His pedigree as a bowler was never in question. His ability, his line and his length, and his movement off the seam, that was all fine. I think his pace was down, but as I said before, he's still dangerous regardless of that. But I just like the fire that he brought. It's something that England have been lacking. As I said, he was sending people off. He was screaming until his eyes looked like they were going to pop out when he got a wicket, and that's just the kind of stuff that I think England have sorely missed.
Yeah, a bit of grit, a bit of passion. So were there any other standouts for you for England? Ollie Robinson, of course, would take headlines there, but was there anyone else? I mean, at first, we'll talk about Mr. Gay, who went out fairly soon at first, and I was a bit concerned for him, but he turned it around quite well as well.
He did, yeah. Again, he was the first wicket to fall, a man on debut, and it's like, oh God, that's not what we like to see. But again, it just became apparent very quickly that, he actually didn't do anything wrong. He got a good ball, and then the wickets tumbled for the remainder of the match from that point in. And I thought his second innings knock, highest score of the game, remarkably, 57. Obviously, you're not going to get many opportunities in a test match to top score with 57, but it means more in the context of the game than if he'd have peeled off 100 on a flat one. So to stand up to that pressure and in the face, he's not going to have many sterner technical tests than that. And New Zealand actually bowled brilliantly for one, and the conditions. I thought he just handled it in a really mature way, actually, and him and Duckett.
I could just hear the Love Island theme tune, which I was not expecting, to be honest.
Him and Duckett got England off to a really good start. And then that one wicket fell, and it was literally at lunch, it was the same thing. It was England are 100-ish runs in front, one wicket down. And it was like, oh God.
Here we go again.
And there was a mini collapse actually post Gay getting out. But I thought the way that, because it was in that situation batting last time, it was Zach Crawley and Ollie Pope. And I just thought that the way that it was handled, the situation by Emilio Gay and Jacob Bethel, even though they both ended up getting out, was just far more mature than anything that Crawley or Pope would be likely to serve up in a situation like that in the third innings. I just thought, they just looked both so assured of themselves. They had the tempo right. They knew when to to attack a certain bowler like the injured Matt Henry, but they also knew when to just soak up the pressure. Bethel was really, really unlucky to get out. He got one that pretty much literally rolled across the ground.
Yeah, I was going to mention that one. It was ridiculous, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I was very, very pleasantly surprised with how that played out. And then in another remarkable similarity to Perth, there was a little mini collapse involving Root and Brook. And your opening, your number 3, literally the same thing that happened in Perth. And it was down to Jamie Smith and Gus Atkinson to try and get England out of a hole. They actually successfully managed to do so on this time. I mean, if you cast your mind back, Jamie Smith was actually unlucky. He was the first of the sort of Snicko victims when it was very unclear, whether he should or shouldn't have been out. So maybe in that situation, he would have got England out of a hole, but obviously that it only got worse for him after that point in the Ashes. But I thought he got his tempo bang on as well. He didn't put his shots away, but he was playing proper cricket shots and he was sensible. And Atkinson, I mean, he ended up hoiking one nowhere and getting out. But I thought both of them seemed to be showing a little bit more maturity. Again, obviously, we'll get onto that in regards to Atkinson. But they both looked like they'd learned a little bit from the Ashes. And I actually thought that even though they only got about 250 odd in the context of the game, that was quite a lot of runs. And I thought England actually managed that third innings much, much better than they have done in other key third innings in the past.
You mentioned the injured Matt Henry. Do you want to talk more about the injury? Yeah,
just to say that, throughout the Bazball era, this has been something that's maybe flown under the radar a little bit. And we've talked a little bit about injury substitutions and what have you, and whether they should be allowed. And we actually haven't touched on the fact that they've brought them in the county championship on a trial this summer with pretty calamitous results so far.
Right, okay.
It's just been
good.
It's been completely farcically handled, basically, and there's been instances of substitutions being blocked because they're not like for like. But the idea being that if your right arm seam bowler goes down, you can't bring in a left arm spinner or a batsman, which is fair enough. But there's been examples of substitutes being blocked because basically the person they're bringing in is perceived to be better than the person they're subbing out, and it's like, well, they're not playing the game.
Yeah,
so
they've been dropped or whatever.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, so
it's like, no, Solskjaer, you can't come on. You always score off the bench.
Exactly. So that's ridiculous. But anyway, the most high-profile injury in the Bazball era was to Chris Wokes, obviously famously in that last test last summer. But I think that's probably, is completely against the reality of what it's been like for England in the past 4 years, which is that this is probably the 4th or 5th instance for England of a lead bowler of the opposition going down in a test match. Happened loads in the last New Zealand series, and it's happened elsewhere as well. So, England just keep getting really lucky with that, and Matt Henry undoubtedly is the attack leader in what is a very good New Zealand attack, and he would have had an absolute field day in this test match. So I have no doubt that played a pretty major part.
Do you think it was decisive then?
It's hard to know, really. I think maybe it would have been closer. I think there was still so much up to chance with this game because of the nature of the conditions. I do think you probably wouldn't have been looking at a 115 run margin if Matt Henry was able to have more of a say. And when you look back at that, when England got to about 100 for 1, no one else in the Test match managed to put on a partnership anywhere near like that. And that was in the midst of the new ball for New Zealand, and their premier new ball bowler. Well, he was bowling, but he was crocked, and he was obviously bowling poorly. And as I say, England managed that situation well in going after him. But you wouldn't usually ever be in a situation where you'd be able to go after Matt Henry in overcast skies at Lords and sort of live to tell the tale. Yes.
So we've done a lot of talk about the pitch and how it affected the game and produced the spectacle that we ended up with. Shall we talk about it from the point of view of, because I'm really intrigued by this, because I personally, as someone who's relatively new to cricket, quite enjoy these variables. I quite enjoy when the pitches are a bit odd and it throws up some interesting, like the Bethel wicket is really frustrating, obviously from a technical point of view. As a batter, you don't want to go out to that because it's like, what can I do? But I just think it's quite fun to see stuff like that happen. But it does sound like when there is a situation like this, grounds people get called into question, the future, the long-term future of the venue gets, spoken about. So talk to us about that, Charlie. Talk to us about the politics of the pitch, if you will.
Yeah, it's a great turn of phrase there. And I think, well, first of all, it's particularly hilarious because it's Lords, and it was also the 150th Test match at Lords. It's the first venue to host 150 matches. But first of all, from an economic standpoint, the play might be interesting, but grounds want the game to go 5 days.
That makes a lot of sense
economically, and that was part of the reason why it was such a disgrace in Australia that the Boxing Day Test was 2 days, and you had the curator having to come out and do like a disgraced press conference. It's very funny, but it's also very funny that it's now instantly happened to Lords. I concur on the fact that it makes for good cricket, but I think the variation is the key word there. And I think we're just seeing too many of these at the minute is the problem. We had 2 in the Ashes, and then we've got 1 now in the first Test. And, it's not something that the ground staff are striving for. And I think that's the problem. And it's not completely objective, the judgment. And unfortunately, we have seen, quite famous instances in recent years of the pitches. So I don't know if the pitches get rated by the match referee after, and that has ramifications. This one's been rated unsatisfactory, which is basically the lowest it can be without being unfit, which would have been...
You can't play there.
Yeah.
You can't play there, mate.
Yeah, like they would have just had to call off the game. And that has consequences. I think the demerit point for Lords, but it was the first one Lords had ever got, so they're not in any kind of trouble. But there are guidelines that the match referee has to follow when he's making these judgments, and he said... that there was excessive seam movement and the bounce was variable throughout the Test, and the ball kept extremely low on several occasions. 16 wickets on the first, 17 on the second. Again, you worry about instances of what actually happens in the game, maybe sometimes influencing the referee's decision in a way it shouldn't, i.e. in that famous Rawalpindi Test where England won. It was a completely dead pitch. It was not a good pitch. And Rawalpindi, that venue, had previous of just not being able to produce a pitch where a full Test match could be completed within 5 days. It was only the remarkable way that England chose to play cricket on that pitch that meant a result was possible. And then that pitch got off scot-free. It was rated good, and it's like, that's not a good pitch because it was a good game.
Interesting.
But I think the thing would be, if you're rating something poor because it was too flat, then but someone won, so it can't have been that flat, but it was. But this was a situation clearly where
your hair looks very nice.
Oh, thank you. So did yours. I washed it today. No, it does look nice.
You pointed out the phallic nature of my hairline earlier.
Yeah.
Is it how penis is it?
Well, it's just like it's
an M. It's McDonald. I've got a Mackey's hairline.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how M shaped that is. Sorry, carry on. I completely knocked you off stride there.
Yeah. So, but there are guidelines, as I was saying, and I think the difference is that we like to see the pitch evolve throughout the game, and you want the pitch ideally to be good to start with, or maybe in conditions like this where the ball seams, it might be because the pitch is green to begin with green grass, so that might be quite hard to bat on. A traditional Lord's pitch would be green grass. It'd be green grass, or it would be, it'd have a tinge of green to it. The ball would seam, the ball would swing. Overhead conditions play a massive part, and that played a massive part in this test. It was basically clouded the entire time. The only time the sun was out was the 40 minutes on day 3 when they took lunch.
Perfect.
But yeah, you'd want it to swing and seam a bit, and for the team that win the toss, well, the team to get put into bat, whether they decide to or not, to have to hunker down for the first session and then grow into it, and then days 2 and 3 it would flatten out, be better for batting, and then days 4 and 5 the variable bounce and stuff like that come into it. The pitch starts to crack up, the footmarks from the seamers will affect the ball, and then that's when it's good to see maybe not ones rolling along the ground to the extent of Bethel, but then that's when it's good because it's you've built up a bit of a third innings lead, you get to put the team in now, and that's why it's traditionally so hard to chase, because it's even if it's 240 runs that you might make in your sleep in a first innings, now the pitch is doing all sorts, now there's scoreboard pressure, and that's how a test match evolves. Whereas this, the first ball of the test didn't bounce at all. It bounced before.
Was that instantly picked up on? Was there expectation going into it that the pitch was going to be interesting? Or?
Well, it was quite funny. They'd sort of bigged up the pitch. Mark Butcher did a great piece at the pitch report about how they'd been pumping steam into it to help kill all the bacteria and everything. And then, it just rolled along the ground.
So is that because of the pumped steam?
Yeah, well, this is an interesting question. I don't think so. It definitely hasn't helped, but I think it's more just that Lords has had a pitch problem for a while now. It's been getting worse and worse. It's by far the worst pitch to bat on of the test match venues now. And there's just the volume of cricket at a place like Lords is such that they just don't have time to replace it. They did the whole outfield over the winter, but for whatever reason, they're saying that it would be about 3 years to dig up the pitch and start again. I don't
Is that
understand.
Normal?
I don't know. I don't really know.
Is it because it's wonky?
I don't think so. I think it's just really, really tired, and because of the amount of pressure on Lords as a venue, they just haven't been able to fix it up. I mean, I, for one, wouldn't mind if we had a few Lordsless years, honestly. I've never been the biggest fan.
Up to Headingley, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think it's ridiculous. Like this summer, they've got a women's test match, obviously fair enough. I think it's the first women's test match at Lords, if not ever, then for a long, long time. And obviously that's very important. But I was thinking, well, that makes sense because we've got the Oval, Trent Bridge and Lords in this one, and then the women are playing at Lords. So the Pakistan test will be Headingley, Edgbaston and Old Trafford, I imagine, because that would be good for the diaspora of the people around, and that means that everyone's got a game. But no, it's Lords. Lords are in that series as well.
Are they?
No test match for Old Trafford. No test match
really
for the
nicely.
Hampshire Bowl, even though they've been deemed fit to host an Ashes test next year. And then it seems like Lords are going to have the World Test Championship forever now. They've always got the 100 final. I just don't see... I think this over-reliance on Lords has been shown up really by the state that the conditions have actually managed to get themselves into.
Do you think it's because they play on it so much then, it's reliant on these big matches? Do you think that's the more a pitch is played on, the more, and you said it's the first one to get to 150, the more a pitch is damaged... Sorry, the more you play on a pitch, the more it'll get damaged, you'd think.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth saying that obviously the pitch isn't 150 test matches old.
Yes.
And there are various different pitches, but you need the test match pitch to be, in the middle of the ground, really. It's one thing to have a county game where you're a few across, but for the spectacle of a test match, it just wouldn't really work. I just think it's, the volume of it, there's just no time for Lords to do the work they need to do on the pitch, but, they're sort of sleepwalking towards a really massive issue, I think, and something needs to be done about it.
Well, as you've written here, do Lords have a long-term problem on their hands? ? And I will pose that question to you now. We've seen, obviously, it's had its first unsatisfactory in its history, did you say? That it's been given that?
Yeah, first demerit point.
Sorry, that was what you said, yeah. but which you'd think in isolation, well, it's just a blip. But do you think it's going to go further than that?
Well, they were making the point on TMS that the one for the India game last year was perfect. Really, it was 387 plays, 387, I believe, like bang on. Yeah. And then obviously England got rolled over, and then I keep getting the teams. I keep wanting to say Australia today, and then India got rolled over for even less, and the pitch started to do a lot, and that is what you want. So they're still capable of turning out a good pitch, but yeah, I don't know where that 3 years figure has come from, and I have some doubt to it. If you can do the whole outfield in a year, I do think that if Lords wants to keep being the home of English cricket to the extent that it is, which I don't think it should be anyway.
Where would you take it if you had the choice?
There doesn't need to be a home.
Right,
that's the whole point of cricket. I kind of wish they did. See, Wembley's great, but I kind of wish they did the same in English football. I think
Wembley's a bit boring. I think.
Wembley's a bit boring. I wish they toured it round more. There's so many domestic games at Wembley in a year. I think we should go back to neutral venues for FA Cup semi-finals. Like if it's like Man City versus Man United, for example, then just take it to Anfield, because then it's decent travel for everyone involved.
That would be so interesting.
Or like if it was Arsenal versus
Although you might get some Liverpool fans rock up just to spite us.
But they used to do that. Is how it used to work. Have it at Villa Park if it's a London team versus a Northern team, stuff like that. I think that would be great. So
find whichever stadium is equidistant from the two clubs. Yeah,
exactly.
Even if it's like a local village, they have to play there. Yeah,
I think that'd be great. So no, I just don't think there needs to be a home. I think it should be. I don't think any venue, let alone Lords, should be getting 2 Test matches a year when there isn't enough to go round anymore. There's only 6 Test matches. I don't think Lords should be getting every World Test final either. I think one should be in Headingley, as we've said before.
Headingley's the best.
Yeah, I just don't think. I think with the amount of arguments that we've had about no Northern Test match, and Headingley is saying, well, Yorkshire, I mean, I think they're always saying something around this, but Yorkshire are saying they're going to have to stop being a members-only club and take private investment because they can't afford to upgrade the facilities, and they're going to keep losing Test matches. But it's like, there's enough to go around if we just stop giving fucking loads to Lords. Yeah.
Well, there we go. Charlie's every couple of episodes he has a little Lords rant, which we just need, and I do agree. Actually, I do agree. I haven't watched loads of cricket in my life, but whenever I watch Lords, I don't. Well, I've always found the best Tests to be at Headingley, so I'm biased in that sense. If we were to, there's a window over there. If we were to look out of it, we'd see Headingley. That's that. We should just say there we are slightly biased, and we go in there very soon. We went there very recently. So should we talk a little bit about New Zealand? We'll talk about how they were. Sloppiness is the word that you've used here. So a few drop catches, some questions about how they approach the batting. What do you make of New Zealand?
Yeah, just uncharacteristically sloppy. There's not many Test matches where England outfield New Zealand, but it happened in this one. Obviously, as we've already said, they were unlucky to lose Matt Henry. I thought Jameson, O'Rourke and Smith were all brilliant. But I think just the fielding lost them this game, to be honest. I think Michael Vaughan was saying, they should have treated the chase like a 50 over chase and tried to exert a bit more pressure on England. But in one of the first overs, maybe even the first over, Tom Latham flashed at a wide one and got out straight away. So it was kind of like you damned if you do, damned if you don't. It wasn't really the pitch to just go flat out Bazball, and even England didn't. Maybe they would have if they weren't under so much pressure from all sides. But I do think that this kind of pitch does lend itself towards attacking batting, because you enjoyed the phrase that I introduced you of there's one with your name on it, and I think that mantra is definitely true for a pitch like this. And again, similar to Perth,
is the one with your name on it, Charlie?
One with my name.
Is the one with your name on it? Is that one?
Is the one with my name? Well, I think every ball would have my name on it in a Test match.
Yeah.
Same as similarities to Perth again, because Harry Brook was the only England batter in the first innings to score 50, and he did it playing his way. So there's clearly some merit to that, and I actually think it's the better test match pitches when you need to grind out those runs that England have fallen down. And actually, they've got a pretty good record all in all on pitches that are doing all sorts. There was the South Africa series in the first summer of Bazball. They won that 2-1, and pitches were better than this, but we had some short test matches. And then they were, 1-1 in the Ashes on pitches like this, but they were the sort of 2 games where they were actually in with a shout of winning. So I think it almost suits their style. So maybe New Zealand should have taken a leaf out of their book. I thought Glenn Phillips, he's a naturally aggressive player, and he did fantastically well in the second innings, but it just ran out of partners in the end. I did actually get to do a little bit of commentary for Spotlight.
Yes.
It's probably worth mentioning. I was doing a little rain dance on the third day, and it worked. So I believe in God now. So I got to do a little bit. So that was fun.
God is real.
But what I was watching was England take the last 5 wickets, but Glenn Phillips play really well. But all in all, it wasn't good for New Zealand, but I think it was the fielding more than anything, and they got unlucky about Matt Henry. And I think the batting, it's not the kind of match or wicket where you can, with any kind of credibility, sort of lay the blame at the feet of the batsman.
I really, that's where the ball was. I really enjoyed when you told me about the Spotlight thing, and the guy you were on with who said, put his headphones down, put the mic down and said, that is great for so many reasons, which I really enjoyed. We should probably say Charlie doesn't want cricket to get rained off. He just wants to get paid for not commentating on it.
Well, no, it wasn't. I wanted it to get rained off on the day 3 so I could do day 4.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, because I was on for day 4.
Did you get paid for how did you end up getting paid?
I got paid. I think I get paid in full for day 4, not for day 5. But that's fine. Yeah. Because it didn't happen. Yeah. But no, it was more that I wanted to do some on day 4, and if there had been conditions to play on day 3 properly, then it would have been over on day 3.
So you wanted
it is a 3-day test really. Yeah. Because there was only 10 overs available on day 3 because of rain. And cricket shot themselves in the foot because it was raining all morning and then sun came out, but they'd already decided they were taking an early lunch, which is their way to try and combat the rain and be like, well, we'll take lunch now while it's raining. It stopped raining. It was lovely blue skies for 40 minutes. They came back out full of lunch, and then it rained and they all went off again.
I love the concept of lunch. It's just such a great... Do you think they actually eat lunch?
Yeah, apparently the Lord's lunches are like the best.
Really?
The best.
That's why they're always
world,
playing at Lord's, because they want to have a nice lunch. It all makes sense now. Maybe, what would they serve in Headingley? Just a bread roll?
Well, I've had lunch at Headingley, and it was... It was chicken curry with 1 bit of chicken in it, but I'm sure that was a county game. I'm sure they ramp it up for the England players.
Yeah, roll out the red carpet and all that. So we've done around about half an hour, just over half an hour on the test. Should we talk about the stuff that happened after the test? As you put it, I really like how you've linked these two together. You said that the test match, hard to remember it actually happened. The aftermath, hard to believe this actually happened. That's really good editorship. I just think that sometimes there's things on this doc which deserve to be more than just pixels on a screen, and that's one of those one of those examples.
I guess the main reason why this is hard to believe is the involvement of one Ben Stokes.
Yes, he's at it again.
Yeah, I'm sure there'd be we didn't all think it was going to be smooth sailing from here on out, but did we think it was going to be, after the first test match of the summer, it was going to be involving another person being punched, and it was going to involve the captain, the man who was apparently incredibly instrumental, along with Key, McCullum and others in implementing...
We need a curfew because our players, we can't be trusted. Yeah. I can't be trusted. Yeah. I'm going to break the curfew.
And Gus Atkinson apparently, he said in the aftermath, well, not publicly, but Rob Key said today that Gus Atkinson claims that he didn't know about the curfew. And it's like, you stood next to the guy who...
You were in a nightclub with the captain.
And Rob Key was also keen to say, well, a lot of them are out, and only 2 of them didn't stick to the curfew, so that's good.
It's like when he said, we're not an embarrassment.
We're not a national embarrassment. Which I think, if it's got to that point...
If you have to say that... then I think that's a really good picture. Can you swing that round? That's perfect. That just sums it up, doesn't it? So Charlie, why don't we talk about the incident? I love how it's named, the incident. It sounds so so dark and dangerous. But I think it actually is. It could have been potentially quite dangerous by the sounds of it.
Yeah, so the incident, it was news of it broke early this week from the ECB, actually. They kind of got out ahead of it, which I think was good, and just said, we're investigating a situation, but what made it sound quite sinister.
That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, it wasn't just the fact that they were investigating, first of all, you're reading it and you're like, oh, well, they're out past the curfew, that's what they're investigating. But then it said when an incident took place, and you're like, oh.
Uh-oh.
But they just said, they made it very clear from the outset. I think by linking in the second test squad in that statement, they'd already basically soft-launched the fact that those two weren't going to be in it. And then we started to hear about a Saracens rugby player being involved. And then over the sort of next few days, the details began to sort of leak out. And essentially what we know is that it was in a Chelsea nightclub. England had been drinking in the Lord's dressing room to celebrate the win. Then they met up with the Saracens rugby team, who were basically on an all-day bender because their season had just finished. Apparently the England team and the Saracens team are good friends, which I didn't know.
That's allowed.
It's a weird one because it's like, obviously, it's funny because I bet all the journalists sort of in the know down there in London all know what England do for nights out. I got glimpses of it when I was at the cricket paper. Like, I was told bits and bobs, which I won't repeat, but it's, I think they actually do know a decent little bit about what England do in their free time, but obviously there's no reason why they would ever need to report. It wouldn't really be fair anyway. Yeah. But they obviously were able to say a few things in this case. It was Saracens rugby club player, academy player Totoa Awava.
Let's have a look. I want to try. Totoa.
Oh, sorry, I've got rid of it.
Totoa Alva. It could be Alva. I don't know.
But it sounds like basically this academy player, for whatever reason, tried to punch Gus Atkinson, which is quite funny. Like, he's the most timid man. Yeah. I feel like we know nothing about him really. He doesn't give anything away in interviews, and I would love to be a fly on the wall in that situation and know exactly how it got to that point. Because he's the most shy, miserable looking man. But yeah, he basically tried to punch Gus Atkinson, we believe, and ended up punching, or whatever happened, it left the England team security liaison officer James Shaw requiring stitches. Basically, reports, including reports from Shaw, have basically said that England players weren't the aggressors in the situation. So I think that has definitely, helped England's case. And it sounds, we don't know this yet, but it sounds like maybe the conclusion that it might come towards is that, England, particularly the captain, shouldn't have put themselves in that position, but they were a little bit unfortunate with how it panned out. Obviously, it's interesting that it's the testimony of the security officer that's being used, because obviously, he was there, he got punched and he was working, so I imagine he was of sound mind, so it's completely fair enough to trust his judgment. But I wonder how far does his loyalty to the players go? Even the fact that his job involves being out there with them, even though they weren't supposed to be out there. Yes. I wonder. Yeah, we'll never know, and I'm certainly not accusing him of anything. But it's just, it's definitely interesting. But that's all that's come out. I think it's fair enough that with the second test looming and the squad announcement looming, that they've just said they're not going to be in it. But we don't know exactly yet what the long-term ramifications are going to be.
Charlie, what do you think the long-term ramifications are going to be?
Long term, I can't say long. We'll talk about the short term and how it affects the second test. But I think long term, I think it's another hit to the reputation of England. And if the managing director's having to come out and say we're not an embarrassment, that's quite embarrassing.
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, and I think it's
nationally.
Probably it means that this win means very little. Obviously, the most major long-term ramification would have been Ben Stokes stepping away. It sounds from reports like he was genuinely considering that, but has cooled off on it, and I don't think that's the way England want it to go at all. But
sorry, was he considering this in the aftermath of this incident?
Yes, yeah, he was considering if reports are to be believed, he was thinking about just walking away completely.
Not just as a captain, but also playing.
Completely.
Was that form? Do you think that the form was involved in that as well?
No, I think it was just this. I think it was just one thing too many with how badly the Ashes went and how it feels like they're walking a tightrope now. They can't get anything wrong, and then he's
got something wrong.
To get something wrong with him involved.
Sorry to go back to the incident. Someone tried to punch. Well, Saracens bloke tried to punch Gus Atkinson, we think, and ended up hitting the security officer.
Yeah.
But where does Ben Stokes? He was just there.
He was there. So it sounds like those were the only 2 England players left out. More players had been out with the Saracens squad, but most of them are believed to have gone home before the curfew. But these 2 stayed out, and it's this is the situation that England find themselves in now, especially with previous high profile incidents, that like it's even being in that situation to begin with is not good. Yeah. And also just make you worried as well about a lot of people go out and have a drink, and that's by the by. You can have an argument about whether you should be doing it in a quote unquote high performance environment like that. It worries me more that in the space of 6 months, I mean, I've never been punched on a night out. I know it happens.
I've never been punched on a night out either.
2 times in 6 months, an England player has found themselves, the target of a punch, and it's just like, are they just knobheads? I do worry about this. I worry that they're not a good bunch.
Well,
of people.
you said if you had to have a drink with the Australia team or the drink with England, you'd go for the Australia.
Yeah, I'd get that impression, obviously from interviews, but then of rumblings I've heard. As well, that maybe they're just not the best guys, and that's not nice to feel like you're devoting so much of your time following a group of people.
You want to love the team, don't you?
Would probably be quite rude to you if you bumped into them, especially with the Ben Duckett thing.
He seems like a knob, doesn't he?
So that's just a little bit hurtful, and of course McCullum, famously adopted, the New Zealand All Blacks policy of no dickheads, and it just doesn't really seem like that's.
All dickheads. He's misspelt it. Yeah. Oh dear. It does sound like that, and as you say, getting caught up in these incidents, whether you're the aggressor or not, if you keep like landing yourself in trouble, like in the situations, I think whether you're the aggressor or whether it's your fault kind of goes out the window, because you keep getting in these. Something's going wrong. Mm-hmm. So
and that's why England just needs to completely remove themselves. Rob Keyes talked today about maybe just blanket banning alcohol. He has come across very much like a dad in this interview, so I don't think anything's kind of set in stone. He's angry, he's disappointed, and he's saying, am I just going to have to say no alcohol? It does feel like a dad being like, am I just going to have to take your Xbox away?
You're really going to have to stop.
But it sounds like he wants. It sounds like the door's not shut for either player at all, and I think. They're speaking closely with both of them, and I think both of them will be back in the fold before long. For what it's worth, I think if Ben Stokes, he's not ruled out stripping Ben Stokes of the captaincy yet, but I think if Ben Stokes is an England captain, he won't continue. He's 35 now. He's had so many issues with his body. He's genuinely kind of like someone who's transcended cricket, and he's not going to be, want for money or opportunities beyond playing for England. And I just don't think it would be worth his time to carry on slipping back into the ranks. And I think they know that. And I think for that reason, as consistent to me as a person, the only predictions I ever make are when I say nothing's going to change. But I could see that being the case.
So you think that he will... Do you think that he will lose the captaincy over this?
No, I think they have to be seen to come down hard on it, because it's just ridiculous to do this so soon into this reset. Again. But I think they'll be desperate not to lose Stokes as a captain. I think the fact that they've got an interim captain in a second, as we'll talk about in a second, highlights that they're not trying to make any decision too quickly or too rashly. So I think either Ben Stokes continues as captain or Ben Stokes goes completely.
Yeah, it's quite big.
And I think he'll continue as captain if I had to guess.
Cool. There's the Charlie O'Brien prediction. Let's see if this one holds up. Just a quick question as well. Do you think that we'll see these two back in the side against New Zealand?
Yeah, it's hard really, because these last 2 tests are back to back. So I think potentially no. The investigation, they're trying to do everything by the book And the investigation, I imagine, will take a little while. I mean, it took the independent cricket regulators' investigation into Brooks nightclub incident was months and months. So I can see maybe, especially if England do all right in the second test, then they might just say it's just be easier if we can just name an unchanged team into the next one, or maybe switch out a seamer or two and just carry on and really let this settle.
Yeah. Makes sense. There was discussion, wasn't there, about when it became clear that Ben Stokes wouldn't be in the side, wouldn't captain the side in the second test. It was who was going to be captain. And I chuckled when Harry Brooks' name was being thrown about, because he would have had to go and do a press conference saying, yeah, well, we can't have behaviour like that, can we? And you have to try and calm the storm when he was the most recent recipient of the press's gaze after a night out situation. But no, it's not Harry Brook, it's Joe Root. Was that what you were expecting, Charlie?
No, I didn't know what to expect, really. I think you're right about the Harry Brook thing. I think the word there is optics. It just wouldn't have looked right. But it is a considerable oversight regardless. He is the Test vice captain, so the fact that he's been overlooked, although it's obvious why, it's still significant. Yeah. And Rob Key was asked about it today, and he said it's one of the reasons, but not the main reason. Harry Brook being clocked by a bouncer.
I think it might be a bit more than one of the reasons.
He just said there's too much on Harry Brook's plate at the minute anyway, and it wouldn't have been fair to him to drop this as well. But I think it's definitely an image thing. Yeah. And if you need someone to rehabilitate England's image, then Joe Rucci, man. He's
a nice guy.
He's the lovely guy.
Yeah, we don't have a pint with him.
He's the one that everyone who's met him said he's just a top bloke. Yeah. He's not going out doing this stuff. But he's also not a natural captain. He captained England for, I think, more Test matches than anyone else.
What, that shocks me, because he doesn't strike me as a
no. But it was just captain. It was for many of those years he was just the only option and the only person who could keep his place in the team, other than Broad and Anderson. Obviously, it ended in calamity, but I think in an interim role, I think he's never going to say no to England to anything they ask him, he'd do. He's just like that. I don't think he's got any personal leadership ambitions, so in a way that makes him a good choice for an interim captain. I just hope that he leans on other people around him really and doesn't take the burden entirely on his own shoulders. I think Harry Brook is a fantastic tactician, and if you are looking to build a team in the image of Stokes once he's gone, which, I mean, it's up for debate whether that is what England will want to do post-Stokes, but I think Brook is the most obvious successor in that regard. But short term, they just need a calm head on calm shoulder, a head on calm shoulders, a calm pair of heads, a calm pair of shoulders, good, safe pair of hands, a safe head. Yeah, you just need Joe Root, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the calm, two heads, two shoulders, knees and toes. I feel a lot better now, actually. I'm feeling good. So thanks for that, Charlie. I'm feeling I've got more pep in not my step because we sat down, but I've got more. I feel less dead, which is nice. Ahead of, we're going to do another podcast after this as well, so it's nice that I'm not going to be dead for it. So should we talk a little bit about that second test then? Because there's, of course, two notable omissions for reasons we've just been into. But other than that, after the first one, I suppose it's hard to say more of the same because the pitch, it's hard to kind of repeat that collection of circumstances that we saw at Lord's. But do you think that England will feel quite good from a performance point of view going into it, or is it just impossible to separate these incidents?
Well, it's hard because I think it would have been very easy for England to just name an unchanged side. I think the only thing that was up for debate really was whether you slot Jofra Archer back in for Gus Atkinson, and that would have been a whole culture war because it would have been easier because Atkinson got that fifer and he's just a Lord's cheat code, to be fair, to say you could almost disguise Jofra not being quite Red Bull match fit after the IPL as just saying, well, actually, we just won that game comfortably. The bowling attack was really good, so we'll just keep it going. And Jofra comes back into it and he comes back into it. And McCullum had, refused to rule out Archer missing another game, which is sort of a mini scandal in itself, really, that, a player's missing test matches because of the IPL, essentially, even if there's not that overlap. you can't have a bowler travelling halfway across the world after bowling 4 overs a day for however long and then just go straight back into a test match. Yeah. But obviously, the hands are kind of tied in that one now. Jofra will come back, and obviously there won't be many England fans that won't be excited about seeing him bowl. So that's fine. But the real issue is Stokes, even though he wasn't needed to bowl too much in that last test because of how well it was going, and he's still struggling with the bat. It's just the way he balances the team and gives you 4 genuine seam options that England will really miss. And there's another reason, aside from the captaincy, why they'll be absolutely desperate for him not to walk away just yet, because no obvious successor has revealed themselves. So England will have to think about how they redo the team. It's worth saying that his replacement in the squad is Jordan Cox, who's a middle order batter. He's a very good player. He was very, very close to making his debut a couple of years ago before getting himself injured. And that's how Jacob Bethel got his chance. So he's an option, but as he's another spare batsman who can keep wicket, you'd think that James Rue is still ahead of him in the queue because he's also the spare batsman in the squad who can keep wicket. So the options are you get Rue in for Stokes, straight swap, but that means we're at 7 and he's actually, probably a number 3, 4, 5 batsman. He's not naturally aggressive or someone who's supposed to be batting with the tail. So I think that presents a problem, and it might mean that one match into his promotion, Jamie Smith would get bumped down to 7 again, and Rue would be in at 6 for his debut. Or if you want someone who's a little bit more Stokes-like as a replacement, you'd go for Cox, just because he's got those extra gears, those white ball gears, and he might not require. I think I'd rather have Cox at 7 than Rue, even though Rue arguably deserves his next chance. But I think if you're coming in for Stokes, it creates headaches with the bowling. So they might think that Stokes' replacement should be Rayan Ahmed, which would mean that Shoaib Bashir would miss out. You should mention Bashir actually, because he got picked and then didn't bowl an over, which is the second time he's bowled in a Lord's Test. Well, not bowled in the Lord's Test already, because on his home debut he didn't have to bowl either. And that was a notable selection that he got in ahead of Ahmed in the first place, especially in a pitch where he was never likely to have to do anything. So he's clearly still their first choice spinner. That being said, can you justify his inclusion without Stokes? I think he's almost like a luxury player that you need Stokes in the team balance-wise to be able to afford to have. Someone who doesn't bat, although he got a handy 14 in the first innings in this one, which was kind of the difference between England getting a first innings lead and not in the end. But he's not on the team to battlefield. He can't really do either. He's still learning as a spin bowler. He's not someone who can hold up an end. So then if you lose your all-rounder, then maybe you do need a spinner who can hold up an end. But I don't think either of their options in the squad are that. I was thinking, I think England they'll name a 12 or a 13 again ahead of the test and then have a real good look at the pitch. I think if you're going to have another pitch like that, I would lean towards just not playing a spinner at all. You've got Root and Bethel in there, and then you can have 4 genuine frontline seamers and an extra batsman and do it that way. Surrey have been really struggling to win matches of cricket this year, which suggests that the oval's been relatively flat. Whether it will be the same in a test match, we don't know. And actually to have an oval test match this earlier in the summer is a surprise, really. So we might see it a little bit more lively. But the oval test pitches are usually good ones. They've not been having the issues that Lords have in the last few years. So if it's going to be a pitch that with a good balance between bat and ball, you probably do want a spinner in there. So maybe you just straight swap Ben Stokes for Rayan Ahmed. Maybe that's the simplest way to do it. But yeah, it's a real pickle that
what would
England
you
have got
do
themselves into. What would I do? I think I would name a 12 that had Rayan Ahmed in rather than Shoaib Bashir, and then I would look at the pitch and I'd say if this is going to be another 3-day game, we'll just pick Robinson, Archer, Tong, and Sonny Baker, and Jordan Cox at 7, and just have 4 seamers rotating, and Jordan Cox with some, hopefully explosive lower order batting. If the pitch looks like it's going to be good and it's going to go long, then I would say maybe just swap Stokes out for Ahmed and then continue with the same seam attack, but just get Archer in for Atkinson.
Nice. And when is the second?
17th of June.
17th of June, not long.
And then the New Zealand, the Trent Bridge one is straight after that, the week after that. So back-to-back tests, and then the series is done.
So in terms of podcast scheduling, it'd probably make sense to put the F1 out first.
Yes,
because there's a Grand Prix this weekend.
I think so.
So it's all going to be in a different order, but that's just, it makes it interesting. It's like a River Song situation that we've got ourselves into. Speaking of which, have you seen the announcement, the Doctor Who announcement?
Yeah, he's gone, isn't he?
Well, yeah,
Davis.
there is no Christmas special. Yeah. It's the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who, and they're just not going to do anything for it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And they put it up for sale as well.
And now Rose Tyler's just the Doctor, and so whoever buys it has just got to deal with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Retcon that out.
It's like, I suppose it was a little bit more, it was a better handover. The handover email to Rian Johnson for Star Wars The Last Jedi was better than the Russell T Davies handover email. But it has shades of that. I wonder if we're going to see whoever's the next showrunner literally pick Billie Piper up and chuck her over his shoulder. That might be where it's going. But anyway, yes. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Charlie?
No, we should get a move on. We've got another podcast to do. Are you going to... Are we watching the game tonight? No, I'm going to the cinema.
You're going to the cinema. What are you watching?
See Backrooms.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's good. I really enjoyed it. Once I got over my unease about the potential of what it could be, I sat back and started to enjoy it.
Nice.
Thank you so much for listening, watching, whatever you're doing. I feel a lot perkier than I did at the start of this. I feel a lot less dead. And thank you for that, Charlie. Thank you for bringing me back to life.
No problem.
And thank you, prospective listener, for being here with us on this beautiful journey. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.